Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to this edition of US Sailing's Starboard Portal. We're really fortunate to be joined by a number of the award winners that we had from yesterday's award ceremony. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, please do. It's on US Sailing's YouTube channel. And first off, I want to extend a huge congratulations to everybody that won the awards, as well as a giant thank you for everything that you've done to help make sailing better in all the different ways. So it was ideally, we would have loved to all be together, but the current situation didn't allow for that. And the reality is that it gave us an opportunity to give people a chance to kind of showcase a little bit more. And we're extending that with tonight's discussion with some of the winners. So really glad to have a few folks from different areas of the country and different areas of US Sailing join us. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce Jeff Johnson, who was this year's Timothy Alar Trophy winner. Jeff, hello, how are you?
Hi, Stu.
Next up, we have Brad Schoch, who's from Southern California. Caramel by the Bay, I think it is.
Caramel by the Sea.
By the sea. I knew I was close. Brad won the Crew Award this year, the Dick Alsop Crew Award, and I have the good fortune of working with him at US Sailing's offices. Next up, we have Karen Harris. Hi, Karen. Karen this year won the Outstanding Organizational Leader Award and is from Jackson Park Yacht Club. And Phil Muller from who won the Coach of the Year, Developmental Coach of the Year, will be joining us a little bit later on. So my name is Stu Gilfillian. I'm the Director of Education here at US Sailing. I'm going to kind of throw it around the horn and ask each of our panelists just to tell a little bit about themselves and who they are. So Jeff, would you mind kind of introducing yourself a little bit and sharing with us how you ended up joining us?
Sure. So I'm in San Diego, California, and I'm the waterfront director for San Diego Yacht Club. And I guess I got into this after I graduated from the University of Texas in Austin. I thought it would be fun to go teach sailing for a summer. And that's when I met Joni Palmer. Shout out to Joni. And she led me down the rabbit hole. She was an early mentor, and I wound up taking her position as the youth director at the yacht club about 4 years later. And she did a great job of kind of handing me off to US Sailing. And I can remember going to a US Sailing symposium, and it was actually in Chicago the first year, and that I attended. And I stood up in front of a ballroom full of people and just basically talked about what I had done that previous summer running a youth program in San Diego. And from there, I got introduced to the national faculty and Timmy Lar, and the rest is history.
Very cool. Brad, you want to share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm in, right now I live in Northern California, but I actually work for US Sailing, the senior instructional designer. My key role is basically to help take knowledge from all of our amazing volunteers and plug it into all the programming that you guys take and make it into products that you can use and get better and safer out on the water. So that's my main role at US Sailing. And then a little bit about my sailing. Grew up sailing in Southern California, became an instructor, took level 1, and then did high school and college sailing, and kept increasing my level 2 and then level 3, and just continually staying in the sport. And now I'm a high school coach on the weekends.
Karen, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Karen Harris. I'm actually president of the Jackson Park Yacht Club Foundation, which is located on the south side of Chicago in a historically African-American community. Our organization focuses primarily on non-boaters, especially non-traditional boaters. And what we're really trying to do is provide opportunities to engage individuals who may not have had an opportunity on the water to get involved in boating and water sports. We focus primarily, though not exclusively, on youth, and in particular at-risk youth. In terms of myself, I grew up here in Chicago, sailing at Columbia Yacht Club, taught there for a number of years through most of college, did a little bit of college racing, and then took a sort of a sailing sabbatical while I was in law school and thinking I needed to work really hard. Got back into sailing about a little over 10 years ago and started racing as an adult.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, so I have a number of questions for all of you just to kind of throw on the horn. And for anybody watching at home, also, Phil will be joining us in a couple of minutes. He unfortunately was delayed for the start. But my first question, just to kind of put out there, and Jeff, I'll direct this to you, is what does winning this award mean to you? You mentioned working alongside Timmy Lahr. You're now winning an award that bears her name. Tell us a little bit about what does it mean?
Yeah, that's a cool full circle story, really. But I think what it means to me is it's nice to be recognized. I hadn't really thought about all the work that I had done with U.S. Sailing over the years until I started trying to put it down and kind of assimilate for this, the recognition that's coming along with this. There's so many energetic and capable people out there that I work, shoulder to shoulder with. And there were so many people at those national faculty meetings. So it almost, again, I kind of alluded to it earlier. It sounds trite to be so grateful to win the award when you're literally one of dozens and dozens that are contributing. But it is nice to be recognized. My wife is an elementary school teacher, and she's won a couple of awards for teaching. So this helped create parity in the Johnson household, and that was that was nice. She's like, "What is this for?" And so I explained that. But yeah, being seen on a trophy with Timmy Lahr's name on it is always going to be special in my heart. I'm jazzed.
Definitely a dynamo. So I'm going to ask the same questions of other panels, but I want to stop for 1 second. Phil, how are you? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Hey, everybody. I'm sorry to be a little late. Apologize. I have to do some burpees for that or something to pay penance, but I'm super happy to be here and honored to be part of this conversation, and congrats to Karen and John, and thanks to Mike, Bradley, all you guys on the panel. Well done. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I guess just quick introduction for folks watching at home. Tell us a little bit about sort of who you are and what you're involved with, what type of sailing and coaching that you do.
Yeah, sure thing. So I live down in South Florida, and I like to go fast on the water. I'm involved with a lot of fast boat racing and sailing. My main project is a 29er program focused on youth development down here in Miami, and we train regularly. And we also get, in my position of high performance sailing, I also get to work with, sometimes, which is really great. I work with the Olympic classes in the 49ers and the FX, and also get to experiment with the IQ foil windsurfers and the kite foilers. I've done some NACR 17 coaching. Recently with COVID in 2020, we launched a race series down here in Miami, the Skip Generation Grand Prix, and March, not this weekend, the following will be I think it's our fifth or sixth. I can't keep track anymore, but we're running a race series here. And the idea is to merge the two worlds of the 29er and 49er and FX Olympic classes so that youth skip sailors see the full pipeline. And it's been a really amazing experience just to have everybody in the skiff community, the high performance community, come together and enjoy racing and learn from each other and share their best practices. So that's a little bit about what I do and what we're trying to build.
Cool. Well, I'm going to follow up the question I just asked Jeff with you, and it was, what does winning this award mean? What does it mean to you?
This, it means a lot to me. It's just great validation for everything that we're doing. A lot of times, we're just ridiculously blessed to be in South Florida and have great weather year round to sail. And super lucky to get to do what we do. But a lot of times I feel like we're kind of at the edge of the world, edge of the US, and I don't really know if we're on the right track or the things that we're focused on in our training and our racing, our winning techniques. And you know, when we've been tested at the World Championships, it's been great to see those results, and just amazing to be part of those experiences for the sailors. And, you know, I think the culture that we have, the team culture, and the collaboration, it's really special to me. And this award is just an acknowledgement of the great energy that you know, so many people have put forth to like make our team happen and do great sailing.
Yeah. So, huge importance of the team concept. Karen, you know, you've done a lot in the Chicago community and grown some amazing, like the photos blow me away every time I see it. Like just nobody seems like they're doing anything but smiling in the program you're involved in, which is incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about what this means to you? Oh, seems I think you got to hit the mute. Sorry.
Sorry. Thanks for pointing that out. So for me, this award is, you know, while it may be me being named as the outstanding organizational leader, it truly is a collaborative and collective award. You know, we have a really great team behind me, and just like sailing is often a team sport, this is truly a team sport and collective organization. Everybody from my board of directors to my director of sailing, who actually was the person who nominated me for it, I found out, to our instructors in training, parents, volunteers, and even the kids themselves. You know, they help make this all possible because they believe in what we're trying to do here, and they fulfill their role so well, and they just sort of allow me to lead it and bring it all together. And I'm truly honored that they have that much faith in the vision that I have for the organization and what we're trying to do here.
And Brad.
Yeah, so like the others, it's really crazy to be considered for this award. It was kind of a surprise and very meaningful in the way that I got to know, like Jeff, the name, and work with the name of the award, Dick Alsop. Actually, my first day on the job for U.S. Sailing was NatVac, and that's when all the subject matter experts in the field get together and come together to build all of our programming. And Dick kind of helped me through that process. And so it's really nice to be part of that award. And then the slew of people that have gotten this award are just like top ranking people. And it's really an honor to be even considered to be at a level that those guys are. So it means a lot.
I think sometimes the named awards, because I knew Dick Alsop as well, and you know the personal connection you have when you, just as Jeff had said, when you're getting an award from somebody that you respect is really, really cool. Jeff, when we've been planning this, one of the questions you had put out there is, you know, talking about describing your first memory of sailing, and I'm curious what your first memory is.
Yeah, so I remember reading a short essay by Mark Twain, and it's called "2 Ways to See a River." And I read it in college, and a light bulb went off in my head. And when I was a kid, I didn't grow up in a junior program. My sister actually went to a Girl Scout camp in Galveston and came home and talked the parents into buying a little board boat. And so we would do like a family vacation type thing where we'd jam the station wagon full and tote this little board boat out to the beach or to a little Texas lake. I grew up in Houston. And there was a little place in Texas called Clear Lake that wasn't really clear, but there was a public park, and we would launch the boat there. And you know, I mean, we didn't wear seatbelts when we got in the car. My parents said, "Sure, go sailing," and that was that. And it was a total adventure for me, being a 10-year-old kid, captain of my boat. I didn't know about where the wind was coming from. I didn't know, you know, what beating or reaching or running was. And I would try and get to the other side of the lake. And it was all just a fabulous 10-year-old adventure. And then all these years later, I walk into any body of water and I'm immediately seeing wind directions and the clouds mean things and currents and where would I put a race course. And that's kind of what Mark Twain described in this 2 Ways to See a River. He thought about his childhood experiences playing on sandbars and seeing vlogs go floating by. And as a kid, those were all storylines in his creative mind. But as he became a river pilot in the 1800s, suddenly those were all dangerous things that you had to be keenly aware of. And so I was like, that's me. I'm the 21st century of that story. So growing up, sailing was a big adventure to me, and I dug that. When I went to college, I absolutely got dipped into a hot boiling vat of competition. There was, youth world champions and people that went off to do the America's Cup and sail makers, and just it was a real great group of people in college, and that's really how I got onto the competitive sailing track that led me to where I am today. But yeah, that was an abrupt change from those mysterious days on our little family boat to where I am now.
I want to come back to the family dynamic piece because I know a number of you have families that are involved with sailing, so I do want to come back to that. But anybody else want to share their first memories of sailing?
Yeah, so my first memory is kind of, well, a little similar. Basically, my family sailed, and my uncle did Sabbath sailing when he was a kid, and he kept his Sabbath, but hadn't sailed since he was a kid. And when I was 15, he rigged the Sabbath and stuck me in it, pushed me out the dock, and then yelled commands from the dock. Not really knowing anything, like Jeff was saying, and eventually I would just start slowly just reaching back and forth and slowly making my way upwind. And it just became like this totally freeing experience that you get with sailing. So yeah.
Karen?
Yeah, I'll go. So my sailing career was actually by accident. So my mother was a public school teacher here in Chicago, and she was going to teach summer school one summer. My family does not sail. So she gave us, my brother and I, we were 9 and 10 at the time, a choice. We could either go to overnight camp or we could take these sailing lessons she had happened to hear about. And we didn't want to do either one. We wanted to stay home and play with our friends all day, every day. And she said, yeah, that's not going to happen. And she threw us in sailing school. And we loved it. We wound up taking 2 weeks that first year. And then from there on out, we sailed all summer, every summer for the next, God knows how many years. And, you know, similar to other people, I think the thing that really drew me to it is the freedom and the control that you have as a kid. One of the things that I always tell parents of kids in our program is, you know, your kid likes it because it's the first time maybe that they are truly in control of their own destiny. Because, you know, we drive our kids everywhere, right? They're being chauffeured here and there, but this is the first time they actually get into a vessel that they get to decide where they're going and how fast they're going to go and all the rest of the decision making that comes with it. And one of the things that I hear from parents after 2 weeks in our camp is that their child has matured so much in those 2 weeks period. And I think that's why, and, you know, they just really get into it. And that's what I liked about sailing too, was you had control of, you know, it seemed like the entire lakefront.
Absolutely. Phil, how did you get started?
Well, I'm just like everybody else, or a lot of the themes here. You know, I come from a family of sailors, and sailing was a family affair for us. My parents were windsurfers in the 80s, and so we had this big white van with windsurfing gear, and we used to, on weekends, go and park the van and set up camp, and my sister and I would, you know, stay in the tent until we were kind of big enough, and then we would each take turns riding on top of my mom's windsurfing board until we graduated to the point where we had our own windsurfing boards, and then certainly the love affair began, like Brad said, and Karen. It was just freedom and just an amazing experience going through the water, and I think I really gravitated to that. And you know, now sailing's still a family affair for our family. My sister's super involved with you know, sailing at a very high level with the Olympics team, and my brother Luke's on the Tokyo team for the Olympics this summer, and and Nick is a rock star skip sailor and kiter and surfer. So we're still hooked. We're still hooked.
Yeah, total family of underachievers. Totally. Yeah. No, and it's just interesting in listening to you guys. I mean, talking about where different family dynamics are, and I chuckle a little bit. The concept of my parents just threw me out there. My parents put me into it, and then the freedom part of it. And so one of the things at US Sailing that sometimes we hear a lot of is that, we want to have structure for the sport, but how do we retain that kind of freedom, what you're talking about, right? So Jeff, you're talking about how you managed to survive without a seatbelt going to the water and then survive on the water, again, without a seatbelt. I applaud you for making that far. As you look at the sport today, what's your view on kind of where we are with how that adventure element and that freedom is part of what we're doing? Do you feel like it's still possible for the kids that are coming through and are starting at the same age when you guys were?
If I can't.
Let's go.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Let's go.
I was just going to say one thing that we do at our camp is at the end of the season, we do something we call the junior program adventure sail. And basically we call it the best sailor, and I've really got to come up with a better name for it because it's truly not the kid who is the best sailor. It's the kid who has the most heart is who we pick. And we pick a older student and a younger student from each session that we have. And so it winds up about 10 or 12 kids. And we take them on this adventure sail. And we sail from Jackson Park Yacht Club down about half a mile to the South Shore Cultural Center, which is a publicly owned facility, but it's got a beach. And we beach the boats and camp overnight and then sail back in the morning. And for these kids, that's an adventure. I mean, they're not going very far. I mean, in terms of, truly sailing, they're going 0.5 miles, but to them, that's a long sail. And what we're trying to do there is to give them a sense of fun and not just sailing around, a course or around the harbor, and showing them that sailing can actually take them someplace in their life. And I think if we structure things like that into our programs, in addition to, obviously, we got to teach them the safety and the capsize drills and, the basic stuff that, it sounds like maybe some of our parents didn't want to do. They just kind of threw us out there. I think it's important we do that stuff first, but then to have that kind of spontaneity and ability to take them on an adventure so that they get hooked like we did.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, the idea of just messing around in boats like I did when I was younger is a little hard to structure in sailing programs. We used to have maybe we still do, a program called Adventure Sailing. And the idea was to teach sailing and specifically not teach racing. I think it's hard to run a program and hire a coach and have a curriculum that doesn't point directly at racing, because racing is so results oriented. It's performance, and you can account for people's progress, and there's a fine line between adventure sailing and just looking lazy. But I sailed around that lake when I was a kid, just in bliss the whole time, but I wasn't getting anything done. And to let kids go out and just have an adventure. I like what Karen was saying about, sail down to a beach and camp out. And I would totally dig that in my 10-year-old self. And where we live, it's a little harder. There's no beaches that you can camp on. But we do, like, some of the most popular things that we do. We have this little race called the Dutch Shoe Marathon, and it's a race from San Diego down underneath the Coronado Bridge to Coronado, and it's a rite of passage. And you still give an award to the first person, but that's adventure sailing. And I think people probably need to make a conscious effort to unstructure a little bit, make some room in their curriculum for a little less structure. You're going to have some parents that you're going to have to ignore and delete their emails when you do that. But I think it's just like giving everybody a little breathing room to adventure. And some kids aren't going to get into that. They're all going to be like nose to the grindstone, race, race, race. But I think it's like consciously reminding yourself to relax. We need to consciously remind ourselves to allow for adventure in what we do, rather than just being always nose to the race results.
Brad or Phil, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that I think I agree with everybody that our programming is generally geared towards racing. I know when I was running a program back in the day, a lot of parents wanted us to do, we had a beach day where you would sail to a beach and have just kind of have fun. It was like every Friday, but we didn't have Monday. So instead of getting rid of the beach day, we added another day for our 5-day program so that we could keep that. And then we added some like other days where there was like kayaking day adventure that we would go all rent kayaks or stand up paddle boards as a big group, and just kind of had throughout the summer different kind of fun activity type days. So I think those are really important for the kids.
So I'll just share, I guess, 2 quick thoughts on this topic, which I think is such a great one that we're having. First is that, looking back and reflecting, like Karen's parents said, you can go to sleepaway camp or you can go to sailing camp. And I remember going to summer sailing camp, and I won't tell you where, because I resisted the structure of summer sailing camp a lot. And, because I was in love with windsurfing and going fast and standing up, and my coach was always telling me to sit down and hold the tiller this way. And, at that moment in my life, I didn't embrace that. And so I would actually, if I were a kid coming to my team in my program, I would be like, this is not for me at all, looking back. But today's world, I think, is super different, and kids have a lot of structured time. Most of their time is structured and organized and planned. At least the, sailors who come to my team have been in the sport for a while, and so they're extremely competitive and been on the routine for a long time. And sailing practice is like the most free that they are, and unsupervised, directly, and that's what they really love about it. And a lot of times, because I work with people in their late teenage years who are like sophomores, juniors, and seniors, sailors will get senioritis, and then they're less concerned about being competitive, and they kind of like trickle away because they want to go chill out and socialize more with their friends. And I just tell them, that's great, do that. And then it's like 2 or 3 months later, they call me and they're like, okay, we're bored. We want to come back. We need to get back sailing and racing. And so I don't know. I think a lot of things about it. I don't have any answers, but it's certainly an interesting topic.
No, and I think as you guys have all identified, there's a number of themes in here. There's, what brought you to the sport and why you love it, why you're involved, and how you view it. With that sort of mindset, who influenced you the most? And Karen, I'd like to offer this question to you first. Who influenced you or mentored you in your development? Oh, still got mute going.
Sorry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about first sort of my personal mentors and then people who inspire me, because then I think it translates into some sailing mentors that I've had. So personally, one of my big mentors, or I shouldn't say mentors, people of inspiration, is Ruby Bridges. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's the African-American girl, she's a woman now, who desegregated the New Orleans schools. She was 6 years old at the time that she did that. And there's this very famous Norman Rockwell painting called The Problem We All Live With that depicts this tiny little African-American girl in a white dress walking between 2, or actually it's 4 U.S. Marshals on her way to school while things have been thrown at the walls like tomatoes and, it's a pretty powerful picture, and it was given to me as a gift about 30 years ago, and it hangs in my bedroom. It's the first thing I see in the morning, and it reminds me that if this 6-year-old girl can be courageous and change the world, then so can I. And so the reason that resonates with me and how I bring it into my sailing world is my second sort of inspiration is my first sailing coach, Cappy Capper, who's very involved in U.S. sailing. And my brother is also involved in sailing. Joe Harris, a lot of people know him. He taught at Columbia, which is where we learned how to sail. He's taught at Grosse Pointe, at St. Francis. He currently runs all of the City of Chicago sailing programs, including the Judd Goldman program, which is for adaptive sailing. And so watching him in his career is really what kind of brought me back to sailing, and all the things that he was doing, introducing thousands, literally thousands of people across the country to sailing. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was to bring some sailing down to the south side of Chicago. There was nothing going on, and really trying to make sure that we diversified sailing here in Chicago. And so those two kinds of things, the Ruby Bridges, we can literally change the world if we're courageous enough to do it. And seeing my brother actually get out there and teach so many people how to sail is sort of how I got back into sailing and have been doing things on the south side of Chicago, is looking at both of those and saying, okay, how can I implement those?
Super cool. And we were talking before when we were prepping that I remember going to some of the early U.S. sailing events and sort of following your brother around like a puppy because he knew everybody, and he and Cappy would walk side by side. So yeah, definitely leaders in the sport, both of them. Brad, want to share a little bit about sort of who influenced and mentored you?
Yeah, so I kind of have like two as well. I'm going to say my grandmother is a big mentor. She helped me a lot to build and give me confidence, especially with the yacht club, because at the yacht club, we're like a small little yacht club that is a power boating club and has like a sailing as the second thought. And she gave me a lot of confidence to kind of keep pushing and helping build that program up. And so my grandmother definitely is one of my mentors. And then I'm gonna say one of my instructors, Brad Shaw Peter. He got me into laser sailing, and then actually hired me as an instructor. And I worked with him at ABYC, or Alamitos Bay Yacht Club in Southern California, for many years. And I think that first coach, or that first kind of role model that you have, is a really big leadership role that the kids have. And so shout out to Brad.
Very cool. Jeff, would you mind going next? We still got you on mute, Jeff. Good. It looks important. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There we go. There we go.
Do that. Is that better?
Yes.
So embarrassing. Anyway, yeah. So family sailing, went to college, and I guess seeing the guys and the women that were on the college team, and just trying to keep up with them and really learn the ins and outs of racing. There were people like Paul Forster and Mark Hallman and Cindy McCree back then. I mean, Bill Draheim. These were all people that kind of pushed me and that I would sail with. And then once I came out here and got hired by Joni Palmer, she was really the one that kind of showed me how sailing works as a business and how you behave as an instructor and how you run a program. And there's a lot, once, I mean, she, I would come in and ask her something and she'd inspire me and I'd walk out the door. But meanwhile, this was so long ago that there wasn't really email, but the phone is ringing and parents are walking in, and there was a whole aspect of program management that went on behind the scenes that when I came around all those years later to take her job, I was like, holy cow, what's going on outside in the water is just half the picture. The other half is behind the curtain. And that takes some inspiration and some mentorship to get used to. Once I switched over to doing race management, I kind of had the national faculty and my associations with all the people in the training world. And I think that led me to look up to people who were already doing well in race management. Tom Farquhar was certainly a key component of that. And I was like an absolute freshman when I started walking around behind him like a puppy. And then here around the club, some of the club members had just gotten done running the America's Cup. So there was Sue Neal and Bruce Green locally that kind of inspired me. Betty Sherman, I can remember working with. Another club member, Barry Alt, who all these people were super cool and super involved and super knowledgeable. And I just remember just absorbing what I could from them. These days, I'm an international race officer, so learning to play the game on an international level is a huge leap. I was telling somebody the other day that I feel like a beginner every time I go to one of these international events where you're learning to I mean, literally how I talk has to be different because English, and I'm constantly remembering that a lot of people in the room that I'm dealing with are speaking English as a second language. And that just floors me straight away. But that's been a huge growth opportunity and learning to be confident, but at the same time, be super humble. And there's so many people around the world that have great ideas that you just need to listen. And I joke, I don't know if Tom thinks I'm joking, but Tom Duggan I have the Tom Duggan voice of simplicity in my head now. I realize things can get complicated really fast. And so I try and use his rhetoric, or how would Tom think about this, and try and keep things from getting too complicated. I also laugh. I also have the Luigi voice in my head, but I can't say what it says.
My first experience with Tom Duggan was him doing a protest committee for a 9-year-old Opti sailor, a young girl who was absolutely petrified. And so your comment about simplifying it, he brought it down to a level that made her feel comfortable. And I think that's a really big skill, especially in that kind of environment when there's 5 older men standing in front of you trying to have you prove your case. So he's definitely a legend. Phil, how about you? Who mentored you? Who influenced you? Who helped you get where you are?
A lot of people. I feel, I'm just like super lucky with the people in my life. And, very early on in competition and in sport, I grew up, my neighbor was Mike Gebhardt, who's been to 4 Olympics in sailing and has 2 medals in windsurfing. And as a kid growing up, and his neighbor, I was able to watch him and his routine, and he would go away to Europe to train for competition and then come home, or there would be his training partners, would sometimes stay at our house because we had an extra bedroom and we would have these dinners. So I think being exposed to, a professional athlete at a young age, it showed me the example. And I learned a lot about the sport and just how, I would say, obsessed you have to be a super high level athlete, and committed. Committed is probably the better word. That's a more balanced word than obsessed. But seeing that and the exposure to that, I think gave me the Olympic dream and the idea. And I've always been chasing that. And I think throughout my personal sailing, there was a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to make it as an athlete. So if I got to chase the Olympic dream as a coach, so I really put all my energy into coaching. And in the past years, I've been supported and embraced by ODP. And Leandro is a great mentor and friend of mine. We've developed an amazing friendship, and just super thankful for his guidance. He really taught me the growth mindset, and to keep things simple. There's another theme that keeps coming up, but with my exposure and work with ODP, I'm now an ODP coach. I've worked with so many greats in the sport, Luther Carpenter and Kevin Burnham. I met Kevin in high school and did work with him a lot down in Miami, just because our teams were training next to each other. And Kevin was just such a big, brilliant guy, such a big personality. So just that joy that he had, and he's so freely shared. I mean, he's such a humble person. But his teammate Morgan helped us a lot and prepare some of our teams in the Worlds leading up to the 2018 and 2019 Worlds. Anna Tunnicliffe, who's a great friend of mine, Anna is the example of, an elite athlete. And so she's a great friend, and I look to her for inspiration, and it's just so many, along the way.
So,
Stu,
kind of
can I
piggyback-
add something real fast?
yeah, go ahead, Brad, please.
One of the things I was going to say about mentorship in just general is there's a lot of mentors that you have along the way, kind of like Phil just said. And it's even just these small little things that they'll say, and you may not even recognize that it's a big moment. And then 5 years down the road, you realize, wow, that was like a really big changing moment. And like Karen Prelo, she's one of our NatBack members. She was my level 1 instructor, and she said, I came to level 1 in some board shorts and a t-shirt, and she goes, you need to be a little bit more professionally dressed, like a collared shirt and some nice slacks to be an instructor. And I'm like, oh no, my yacht club just, doesn't care. And she's like, well, you have to think outside your yacht club. And just saying that opened up so much more. And it's something so small that she probably didn't even think anything of, but it opened up a whole new mindset. So it's even the small little things that make a big difference for people, I think.
Just to pile on that, you never know what people are going to remember. I used to tell the instructors that were working in the summer program, you never know when you're going to make an impression on somebody that's going to last a lifetime. It could be that the kid you don't see that gets caught in between the boat and the dock and has a bad experience, not to over dramatize it, but like I talked to my daughter who took 2 weeks of sailing lessons, and she's almost 20 now, and she remembers being caught underneath the sail. And that's her big takeaway from sailing lessons. So, there's kids out there that you just never know as instructors when something's going to resonate, and it might take a while for it to resonate, but everybody has the capacity to be a mentor for sure.
Yeah, I think that point is really important. When we work with our kids, we have both a paid program and a scholarship program. And for a lot of the scholarship kids, they have never, so we've got this great lake in Chicago, but unfortunately of the 2 million people who live in Chicago, about 800,000, most of them low-income minority kids, have never even seen Lake Michigan. They think it's an ocean. They have never been to the beach. They have never been in the water, let alone on a boat. And so, we have to work with them very closely, both in terms of, swimming safety, but to get them comfortable in the water, to show them that they can do this, and to really kind of explain to them throughout the process. And we work actually with a clinical sports psychologist to do some of this, that, as they get to the next milestone, okay, you did a capsize test and you survived it. You went out on the boat and you were able to sail upwind, those kinds of things, that they can apply that to their life. We kind of use sailing as a way to teach life skills that, it may be scary, but you can do it. If you do the work and if you stay the course, you can go places, and sailing can take you there. And that's one of the things that I think, is so important for our kids, is to get that self-confidence in themselves. And we as their coaches and the people running these sailing programs can help instill that.
Great thoughts. One of the questions that I had for you guys relates to, what advice would you have for somebody who's watching you and says, you know what, that person resonates with me, I want to be them. And Karen, I kind of want to go back to you, because you're talking about how you're using sailing really as a vessel, as a conduit for a lot of other things. And I'm curious, how do you impart what you were just talking about to these kids in a way that it sticks?
Yeah, so they think they're learning sailing, but as I explained to their parents, we're teaching them so much more than that, right? So they love it because they get to go out in the water and have all these fun times and whatnot. But, you know, we've sort of changed our program so that it's not the traditional sailing program. We don't focus on racing. We do have a voluntary race team. One of my head instructors coaches that on a voluntary basis, but we don't have any paid instructors who are racers or teach the kids racing. And what we're really trying to do is to kind of build in some of these other things. So, for example, if it's a rainy day, we do a poetry lesson, and we've picked poems from some of the great poets, some Black poets, some Chicago-based poets, and we have them read these poems and then write about their sailing experiences. It doesn't have to be a poem, but something. And then we pick at the end of the session sort of the best poems, both the older kids and the younger kids, and publish those. Because we're trying to bring, you know, how do we bring this all together? It's the love of nature. The other thing that we do is we call it our marine ecology arts project, where we take them to the beach and we teach them about what should be on a beach, what shouldn't be on a beach. And then we have some burgees with some cyanotypes, so basically chemicals. You put the stuff on it, you expose it to light, and then it gives you a beautiful design on the burgee, because we want to teach them about, you know, the environment and how you take care of the environment. So we partner with another group that does air quality monitoring, because some of the kids in lower income neighborhoods, you know, have poor air quality. So we're kind of teaching much more than sailing, but trying to bring it all together at the end through sailing.
Curious about from the rest of you. I mean, you all come from very different backgrounds. Phil, you're obviously, you know, high performance coach in a lot of ways. Brad, instructional design. Jeff, you've talked about how you're involved with project management. I'm curious from the rest of you as well. What do you say to the people that look at what you're doing as a career path that they might want to follow?
Yeah. So, well, I'll take this just in the abstract. One thing I think is to have a lot of passion, and to not be afraid to show your passion. When you have a lot of passion, other people get excited and glob on, and then they start supporting you, and then you get the snowball effect. And then the other thing I was going to say is listen, and then listen some more. There's so many people that have already gone on the road and know where all the potholes are. And if you can listen to those people and not fall into the pothole yourself, you're going to get farther faster. So it's always good just to take the step back. That's kind of like my bigger approach. If you want to become an instructional designer, which is kind of my sailing actually led me to instructional design, because I taught sailing and it was really cool to teach people things. So if you're interested in instructional design, I would say become a sailing instructor first, and really kind of like see how the application works in like real life, and then you can like go get a actual college degree in it. But that's kind of what I would say, at least on my part.
I'll chime in next.
Fire away.
So it was interesting. I was having a discussion with my daughter, and she's in college, and we were talking about careers and pathways and so forth. And it got me to thinking that my job is such a teeny tiny little job niche, being a regatta manager or waterfront director. And I remember hearing a quote early on that something like 80% of the jobs that will be out there weren't created when you were born. And certainly they didn't have regatta managers or waterfront directors when I was born. So I'm one of those. But, you know, I think to echo a little bit about what Bradley said, I think passion drove me a lot. I had that adventure as a kid, and then I had this exciting, the competitive bug that bit me in college. And I came out, and Joni taught me how to, you know, teach sailing and stuff. And kind of the next step was to jump into program management and running a youth program. Like I said, out on the water, it's one thing, and it's a whole different act when you're behind the door and answering emails, and you've got hurt children, and you've got you know, phone calls coming in, and at the end of the day, you're an employee at a private club, And let's not forget that private clubs can be very service oriented, and it's real easy to lose sight of sailing when you are in the midst of trying to balance budgets and meet member satisfaction and compliance and all that stuff. There's all this HR stuff that goes along with it. So after you've had the broadest possible range of fun experiences sailing, and after you've enjoyed teaching sailing for a couple of years, and you can teach sailing in your sleep, and you remember how to look at a spreadsheet and debits and credits and do all that stuff, look around and talk to people, network. Again, my simple friend Tom Duggan says you can't learn when you're talking, you can't listen when you're talking. So listen to a lot of people, ask questions, and I think people will recognize passion and draw you in. Opportunities will present themselves. So never stop trying.
I'm taking notes here from all you guys. I've got a couple good ones. Don't be afraid to show your passion. Brad, thanks for that one. Karen, my wife, is a poet and works in the city of Miami with an organization, and they do poetry and education. And I'm like, okay, check. We're going to do that one too. So this is great. I'm learning a lot here. It's so funny. I had a conversation with a high school student last week, and he kind of interviewed me for a project he was doing for school. And he's like, what would you say to a guy like me who wants to be a sailing coach when he grows up? And I was like, go to law school. Don't be a sailing coach, or whatever you're into. He's like into engineering, but he's like, what? And I'm totally kidding around. I mean, obviously we get to have these amazing relationships with people. In the moment, sailing is super high stakes, right? Like a sailboat race for me is extremely high stakes. Winning sailboat races is what I care about, but in the context of the world, it doesn't really matter at all. But it is our platform, for high achievers, for people who are competitive. Sailing is the platform for them, and it's just amazing to test yourself and test your preparation, test your instincts, test your wits against Mother Nature, and so that aspect of the sport is really exciting for me. And as far as coaching goes, it's just extremely fulfilling to develop these relationships with people and learn. I've learned so much about myself while trying to teach two athletes to communicate better within a boat. It really makes me bone up on my communication skills and my listening, as was said, right? You got to listen first and speak less. So it's an amazing career and group to be a part of. It's an amazing sailing family. So
we have a question from Josh Toast. Oh, please, Karen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I'm actually a lawyer. I do the sailing stuff as a volunteer, but my real job is I'm a lawyer. And I went to law school, and my brother, started his sailing career as an instructor and running programs. And he would send me pictures of him out on the water in his day job, and I'm sitting behind a desk. So don't go to law school. I can tell you that. Become a sailing instructor.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Karen.
Got to come up with a different answer, Phil. Josh Toso put a really interesting question in the chat box. We talked about who influenced you, and I'll open this up to whoever wants to take it first. He says, who is an up-and-coming rock star that you've seen in the sailing industry that we should keep an eye on? And so I don't know that that's necessarily related to competitive sailing. It's somebody who is going to be a change maker in our industry. So Karen, you look like you've got somebody in mind.
I do. So our kids are younger, and like I said, they are not racers. For the most part, we have a race team, but it's not the kind of competitive racing that you guys are doing. But I've got a number of kids in my class, but one who stands out is Grace O'Neill. So she is actually on U.S. Sailing's Youth Advisory Board. She's a 13-year-old girl, is finishing her freshman year in high school. She is just amazing, and she's so thrilled to be involved with she sort of sees the other kids that she's on this committee with as being, such superstar racers and have been sailing longer than she is and all of that. But she's so thrilled to be a part of that and to have the opportunity with U.S. Sailing. She's your biggest cheerleader, and is just going around talking about how much, U.S. Sailing doesn't only care about the racers, they care about, just the everyday kid on the south side of Chicago. So she's somebody who I think is going to do great things with U.S. Sailing in the years to come.
Other thoughts? You guys are all smiling, so the thoughts are rolling.
I guess I'll do the ultimate cop out. I'm sure there are people out there who are promising youth sailors right underneath my nose. They're on a yearly basis. There are kids literally rigging and going out sailing 6-7 days a week. Our parking lot is always full, and they've done amazing things. The most recent one that I can think of is Andrew Campbell, who just finished up on American Magic in the America's Cup, and he was a little kid holding his mom's hand back when I was running the youth program. So on any given day, I can look out and I see the kids that are getting dressed in their little mini hiking pants and their dry tops, and they're going out and just giving it all kinds of passion. I think every one of them is a rock star. It's just a matter of what siphons them off as life goes on. So I'd give a shout out to every young person that I see in the parking lot.
You said it, Jeff. Well done.
I love that we got like the mass answer that still solves the answer to the question. I would just inject one other piece. I remember being a younger program director and going to U.S. Sailing's National Sailing Program Symposium. And I would show up and, talking about before, following around your brother, Karen, because like he knew everybody, and they used to give out a book that had all the bios for everybody, and I would read through them. And I remember being that guy, and I would encourage anybody who looks at people on this panel and says, I want to be them, or there's an opportunity that I think is here for me. I hope I speak for all of you guys and say, like, reach out, ask questions, because you're all teachers and you're all leaders in this field, and you're helping to drive us forward. So don't be afraid to connect. I think that's a really important thing in this industry. We're going to do one more question that's actually coming from the audience here, which is, I think, a good note for us to sort of wrap up on. If you could go sailing with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? Brad, you want to go first? You look like you had a thought there.
So I guess this is a hard one, actually. But I'm going to go with the sentimental family. I didn't, my grandfather sailed a bunch, and I unfortunately didn't get to meet him. So I would pick my grandfather.
Good answer. Others?
I'll go the other direction and say Jimmy Buffett. I think the cocktails and the stories would be highly entertaining. And if it wasn't him, it would be like Sir Francis Drake or Magellan or somebody, and go for a ride for about 3 hours on one of their old ships.
Buffett has some fun toys too, though. I mean, that would also help. A good piece to it. You guys, Phil, Karen, any thoughts?
Obviously family. I do sail sometimes with my brother and his daughter, and my mom's a little older now, so she's not able to move as much. But I think having her come sailing with us, she doesn't sail, but she paid for all of us to go sailing and learn how to sail. I think that would be pretty fun. And then the others that I think I would go, I'd probably take the Obamas out. I actually live in Hyde Park, so that's their old neighborhood. I'd take them out, and they're building the Obama Presidential Center really close to where my program operates. So I'd take them for a really good sail and then hit them up for some money.
I'm going with Karen.
The opportunistic side of that. Yeah.
Don't forget to invite us that day.
Phil, how about you? Anybody come to mind?
You know, a dip into my personal life here. My wife is 10 months pregnant and we're about to have a little girl and we're totally thrilled. It's our first. And, you know, I am just thrilled to get on the water with her when the time comes. So I'll be waiting for that moment and hope it's a good one.
Cool. That is, I think, a really good note for us to end on, and congratulations on your forthcoming edition. I want to again thank all of you for taking some time with us, and again thank you for making such a big commitment to the sport and helping grow in very, very different ways. I mean, I love the fact that we have people, Brad's involved with the organization and volunteerism, Karen's coming from the community sailing side, you know, Jeff is representing race admin, but also training. And then you've got Phil, who's been very involved with coaching, although I know you've got a lot of community sailing background in you there too. And so what's really cool, I think, about this panel is that you guys show that the sport's so diverse, but you're also coming from, there's a lot of cohesion in it. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts and your feedback. If anybody out there is watching and knows of somebody who you think should be recognized as the next US Sailing Award winner, please go to our website, make nominations. They're open now. We want to make sure that we recognize the hero in our sport. So with that, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time here, and for everybody watching at home, thank you as well. And